Good morning. Welcome to the forecast discussion for Tuesday, March 19th, 2013. It's currently 9:30 a.m. and the rain and snow is slowly exiting out of the northern mid-Atlantic, but we have one more batch to go through before we finally clear out. We have temperatures in the upper 20s to lower 30s over the northern interior, mid to upper 30s along the coast, and lower 40s over southern New Jersey. As you can see, we have the winds starting to veer, or should I say back, to the north and northwest as the coastal low is finally starting to become the primary low pressure system with this storm. So as a result, we're starting to get colder air pulled back into the northern mid-Atlantic, but it's not going to be fast enough to produce much of a change in precipitation. Taking a look at the radar, you can see we have one more batch here associated with that new coastal low developing. And this batch is producing some snow, some sleet, some freezing rain, and also some rain. For the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area, we'll see a rain-snow mix, no accumulation. Over the northern interior, it's going to be one more burst of light snow and sleet and freezing rain. However, the good news is that temperatures are still slightly above freezing in most locations, so accumulation will not be added on. This is the last batch, and then we are done. So I'm saying by around noon, this entire area will start to clear out and we'll start to see dry conditions take hold throughout the entire Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area. We can see this very nicely on the infrared satellite picture. Here's our coastal low finally taking over. Our primary low pressure system, or the old one's rapidly weakening, and that's why we're seeing that shift in the winds as basically air is rising much faster along the coast than it is over the interior, thus the shift in winds. So as this is developing, we'll see more lifting developing along the coast, one more batch, and then we are done, and then the storm exits. However, there is more trouble on the way. On the water vapor satellite picture, you can clearly see our upper level low shifting towards the coast, our old upper level low over the Canadian Maritimes starting to break down. Our negative NAO pattern is going to remain in place for the next several days. Thus, it's going to be pretty cool, and also we're going to have high pressure and control. So we're going to have cool, tranquil conditions. However, this disturbance right here is something we're going to have to watch out for in about 7 days, as it could produce another rain-snow mess for the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area by the time we get to Monday afternoon and Monday evening. And then we have this disturbance way up here by the Aleutian Islands that could also create some problems in about 10 days out. So we have a lot of activity still to get through as we head off towards the end of March. This is the European model guidance from the Penn State EWOL website. And as always, we start with this evening as our low pressure system shifts towards the coast, intensifies, lifts up into New England. We dry out. Notice we have a nice deep trough over the eastern United States with our temperatures basically holding in the mid 40s to lower 50s for highs by this afternoon. For tomorrow, a little bit colder air moves through with a weak cold front that passes. No precipitation is expected, just some variable cloud cover. Temperatures struggling in the upper 30s to mid 40s. You're definitely going to feel it tomorrow afternoon with that colder air building in. That won't last long though, because high pressure is going to remain in control. And as a result, we're going to see a bit of a moderation for Thursday and Friday, if you want to call it that, with temperatures in the mid 40s to lower 50s for highs. Still below normal for this time of year. We should be in the mid to upper 50s at this point. But with this strong upper level low sitting off of the Canadian Maritimes, that's going to drive cold air down into the northern mid-Atlantic and keep us nice and chilly. Now, towards the end of the forecast period, we have this disturbance with the subtropical jet stream that was moving into the west coast that will travel towards the Tennessee River Valley and then eventually redevelop right along the coast. So you can see we have cold air damming here. We have a nice area of low pressure starting to develop over the southeast. Now look at what happens by the time we get to Monday evening. This low pressure system is rapidly developing off of the North Carolina and Virginia coast. Now the question is, going forward, is whether this upper level low, the negative NAO pattern, is too strong and suppresses this storm and allows it to move due east, or is it a little bit weaker and allows this low pressure system to track a little bit further north and then head out. If it tracks a little bit further north, then we're dealing with a little bit more of a rain, snow, or possibly all snow event for the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area by the time we get into Monday evening. We have a lot of time to watch this. There's a lot of questions to be ironed out. If this storm comes in earlier, let's say during Monday afternoon, you have a higher sun angle, and so even if it does snow, it's going to be harder to accumulate. So there's a lot of questions we have to iron out with this storm before we get into any real fine details, but certainly something to keep an eye on as we head in for next week. And then beyond that point, the pattern's going to start to slowly change. But with a pattern change always comes a storm. And we're going to have to keep an eye on this storm for the end of next week. So next week it looks like we're going to be pretty busy as we head into Passover and Easter. A lot of people are going to be traveling. And unfortunately, it looks like there's going to be a lot of storms out there to keep an eye on. That is your forecast discussion for today. Of course, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. You can follow the latest weather information at nynjpaweather.com and nynjpaweather on Twitter and Facebook. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there.